Hello my dear friends, hope you all be fine and doing well. Thank you so much for joining me again. Thank you so much for joining in your channel. My dear friends, today in this video I am going to show you how you can trap your opponent. So without wasting the time, let's get started the game. So in this position, you just simply start the game by pushing the pawn into d4. Now your opponent is simply pushing the pawn into e6. So my dear friends, in this position, your opponent has different options to play. But in this position, when you want to trap your opponent, so you should be careful about the moves of your opponent. So if your opponent is without pushing the pawn into e6, if he decided to move other pawn, so definitely we would have another trap for that. So therefore, I have uploaded lots of trap and different variations. You can watch all those videos and you can use it in a proper way. And the reason behind the pushing the pawn into e6 is the next move of your opponent is pushing the pawn into d5, and he is going to control the center in this way. So therefore, you also push the pawn into e4 as you are controlling the center. So this is the main lines for your opponent to push the pawn into d5, and he is also want to have more control in the center. So in this position, my dear friends, you have this great option, and that is pushing the pawn into e5. Now with pushing the pawn into e5, you have very good control in the territory of your opponent. So in this position, the best move for your opponent is to pushing the pawn into c5, and he is going to break your pawn's structure. So that's why your opponent push the pawn into c5. In this position, you should push the pawn into c3 and defend from your pawn. So whenever your opponent is capturing the pawn, so therefore you should have this option to capture the pawn easily. Now your opponent is taking his knight into c6 and bringing too much pressure upon this pawn. From other hand, you also have to force to defend from your pawn. And here, my dear friends, you just simply take your knight into f3 and keep protecting your pawn. So in this way, you added one defender to your pawn. So your opponent is seeing that you also have pressure, and also he is going to bring his queen into b6. And what is the best move about this? So your opponent took his queen into b6. So from one side, your opponent is bringing too much pressure on your pawn. From other hand, your opponent is targeting your pawn. For example, if you take your bishop in somehow to defend, so therefore in this position your opponent can easily capture your pawn and can threaten your rook. So it would be a very bad line for you. So my dear friends, this is your weak pawn in the center, and from other hand your opponent is making pressure on your pawn to attack it with one force, knight 2 force, and with queen 3 force. From other hand, you have one force from your knight, and another one is pawn, and the third one is queen. So in this situation, so your opponent is bringing too much pressure. So my dear friends, in this position, you cannot simply capture the pawn, because now your opponent is simply capturing, and now it is very difficult for you, because your opponent is targeting the pawn by 2 force. From other hand, you separated your pawn, so it would be very difficult for you to defend from this pawn. So your opponent has this option to take his knight, and from this variation, your opponent can simply attack to your pawn, and also he has the option to go castle simply. So in this way, it would be a very fantastic and brilliant game for your opponent. So in this position, what you should do, my dear friends, let's come back to the main lines. So my dear friends, in this position, you just have simple review and simple analysis with yourself. In this position, your opponent is attacking to your pawn with 3 force. From other hand, you also have 3 force, and you know that your opponent has targeting in your pawn. In this position, without any hesitation, you just go for this trap. Especially the traps would be a little bit tricky. Sometimes if you are not able to manage the entire game, so your trap would be difficult for you. So that is why when you are going to trap your opponent, you should be careful for all of your moves, because even a small mistake can lead you to the failure, and you are going to lose the game. So that is why if you are sacrificing something, if you are going to trap your opponent, So you should focus on your game and put your attention 100%. So that's why you can win the game. Otherwise, it would be difficult. And also, if you take your time thinking with yourself, so it would be very difficult for your opponent. And also, he would be under pressure. Somehow, he is going to lose a piece, and it would lead him to the losing the game. So in this position, my dear friends, you have the equal defending and your opponent has the equal piece to attack to your pawn. In this position, you are neglecting from your pawn. You just simply take your bishop into d3. Somehow in this position, your opponent is thinking maybe you made a mistake, because now your opponent has one attack with his knight 2 attack and with his queen 3 attack to your weak pawn in the center. From other hand, you have only one defender from your knight side and one defender from pawn. So now you don't have this option to defend from your pawn by your queen. So by taking your bishop into d3, you disconnected the link between the pawn and the queen. So in this position, your opponent is capturing the pawn. So now you should not worry and you just simply capture the pawn. So in this position, your opponent is thinking, when I capture the pawn, so you have to capture with your knight. On that time, I can capture it with queen easily. So that's why your opponent is capturing the pawn by his knight. Now you should not worry, you just simply capture the knight. In this position, your opponent is simply attacking and capturing your knight. And he is saying that, wow, I got a piece. Now I'm going to win that game. Now, my dear friends, in here by his surprise, you have this brilliant check by your bishop. And you are giving a very tricky check to your opponent. So in this position, wherever your opponent is moving, so you are going to win the queen. And it would be very, very nice for you. And you will win the game easily. So for example, in here, if your opponent is deciding to move his king into d8, now you are simply capturing the queen. In this way, you are trapping your opponent and capturing the queen easily. So my dear friends, it was today's trap and I hope you enjoyed from this trap. If you like the video, please subscribe the channel, share it with your friends and family members. And this way, you are motivating me to make lots of good videos for you in the future. Thank you so much. See you in the next video. And please, don't forget to hit the bell icon. So whenever I'm uploading a new video, so you should be the first one to watch the video.